I welcome all of you, all my guests today. My name is Nitin Agarwal, and I'm an associate professor of information systems at San Jose State University. It is my great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Michael Jones, a very kind and a humble man. Michael is an inventor, engineer, innovator, investor, and a leader. He co-invented or was an early contributor for some of the most popular products that we use in our daily lives, like Google Earth, Google Maps, and Google Local. He's currently a senior executive at Niantic, the makers of Pokémon Go, one of the very popular games at San Jose State. He's also a partner at Seraphim Capital, the world's first space-focused venture fund. Previously, he served as a chief technology advocate at Google, CIO and inventor of Google Earth, CEO and CTO of Intrinsic Graphics, and director of advanced graphics software at Silicon Graphics. Most recently, he was awarded the Patrons Medal by the Royal Geographical Society for his contributions to the field of geospatial information, geographical research, teaching, and public engagement. And just in case if you don't know about it, it's the medal approved by Her Majesty the Queen and is amongst the highest honor of its kind in the world. Thank you so much, Michael, for coming and joining us and talking to our students. Over to you.
Okay, well, great. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody in the class. I can't see you, but glad you're good, doing good. I'm going to talk to you for a little bit about managing businesses in the context of information systems of various kinds, and then, but mostly about management in general, but in a data-driven world. Okay, so I'm gonna hit the button here to share top, and then we're going to go through the presentation. Okay, so we're gonna talk about informed management. That is management informed by MIS of various kinds. I didn't realize Nitin was going to give such an exhaustive background on me, but it had occurred to me that I might need to, given a tough audience, kind of try to build up my street cred a little bit. I am executive at Pokémon Go, Harry Potter Wizards Unite, Ingress, all the Niantic games. The thing I work on is both general management with the CEO, but also augmented reality as it buying companies and building teams and working on technologies there. I'm a VC. Two of my companies are local, so they're not all in England, even though it's an English company. Two of my companies that I funded are local here. And I did just win this crazy award from, in England, or was bestowed this honor. And the Buckingham Palace has a private the Royal Mint, and they're making these medallions for me now. I get them later in the year because the ceremony was held up by the COVID crisis. So, not only are we all hiding in our houses, the Queen's hiding in Buckingham Palace. So I guess it's tough being the Queen too. And so that's supposedly why we're listening to. Let's see. So there are lots of kinds of management information systems. And presumably you've studied all these kinds of things, decision support systems, enterprise resource planning things, HR information systems, and of course the Spartan information system for keeping track of spears and things like that. They all have this notion of turning, like, maybe you have all the information, but it's like in a warehouse, or like you have all the stuff, but it's in your garage, and so you still can't use it because you don't know where it is. Trying to take all of that and simplify it into something where, on the right side, where you see an airplane cockpit, an Airbus 330 cockpit, two things are going on there. One is the information is organized so that the pilots can see what's going on, and two, so the pilots can actually do things about what they see. And those are the two things that are crucial to keep track of as you think about management in the world of information systems. One is getting the right data presented to the right people in a form they understand. And an airplane cockpit is highly compressed and not a form most people understand, so it probably wouldn't make sense for most businesses. But the right information, so it's not overwhelming, as that would be if you were a beginner. And also they can take action on the information. And that's a big deal. That's what's missing sometimes. Sometimes it's reporting, but it's not the same thing to like go online and look at a catalog page by page as it is to go online, look at something, and then click on it and buy it. Okay, the actual do something is different than look at something, and that's everything. Okay, now there, interestingly enough, in the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, have come to be a number of kinds of kind of MIS type systems for non-managers. So this is one from the last couple months that I'm sure we've been all looking at. This is data as of yesterday. I did it this morning, but it's data as of yesterday. Tracking people being sick with the COVID crisis. And it's a complicated thing done by Johns Hopkins University, America's first research university. And that's used by, many hundreds of thousands of Americans to understand what's going on, used by the press, used by World Health Organizations, used by, state governments, local governments, federal government. Another one is this one, which is if you've used DoorDash, this is an example of what the DoorDashers might see. And is helping them be a better DoorDasher. Okay, and so that's a big deal. That's a big deal as well. Okay, and then now we have another kind, which is in this case, it's San Jose State University, viewed through Google Earth. So, Nitin, will you tell me, is this working? Okay, okay, good. Okay, so you wouldn't think of Google Earth as a MIS. I understand that, but and it's not like I'm so fixated on Google Earth that I have to talk about it. But I want you to understand the layers of depth in these things. So this is Google Earth. This is the web version. So this is the thing you'd see on a phone if you hadn't installed the application, or you'd see on a web page. So, and there's the university right downtown. And so if you're going to walk from the College of Education to the campus village A, you could find your path there even if you were a new person. So that's the meaning of Google Earth to most people. I can get where I'm going. Like, you use Google Maps, you want to find where the bathroom is or where to park a car, things like that. Totally fantastic. However, you might wonder how much data it takes to make that work. You can see there's a 3D building for every building in the United States, actually for every building in the world. That's built from millions of images automatically. It's a phenomenally big database. And if you bought disk drives, you might have a notion of like a disk drive or a server with lots of disk drives. Well, the thing behind Google Earth looks like this. Okay, so the racks in the front here with the white lights and the yellow lights, those are different. That's internet distribution to the servers. But in the rest of the room, what you see are 20,000 computers packed with CPUs and disk drives. It takes about that much to make Google Earth work. Okay, so it takes about $2 billion to build a room like that. So it's a lot of data to make this, so-called the big data thing really work. Okay, so big data isn't like a big spreadsheet. Big data is like a flood, of disk drives. Okay, and if you do that right, here's the kind of thing you can do. This is a facility called the National Counterterrorism Center, United States facility, the NCTC. It is a place, you see the front door on the left, it's at an undisclosed location, that all the information about actual terrorist activity, like real, like people smuggling bomb parts, people smuggling chemical weapons and biological hazards around the world are tracked in ways that can't be talked about. And there's a big thing on the board there, kind of like tracking a space shuttle, but instead it's tracking bad guys. And whenever two of these bad guys get together, that's interesting. So something as innocent as Google Earth can become the center of action there on the big screen. So that's the way these things, if you organize around them, they can define your enterprise. All right. Now I have 3 points I want you to learn. All right, that is, I'm hoping I can teach today. And this is, you might guess, the first one. And that is, it is the job of a leader to take early and effective action. Now that's a management concept. It's actually not a management concept. When I'm not doing the Niantic thing or the VC thing or the teaching a class thing, I'm a boat captain. And that's a boat that I've sailed that boat. And that's off Whangarei in New Zealand, the North Island, on the north coast of New Zealand, about an hour and a half north west of Auckland. And the waves are pretty good out there. And this is a boat going through the waves, no big deal. Anyway, I work on designing boats like that and driving them. Here's the thing. When you get on a boat, if the boat sinks, you die and you're out of the ocean. So the captain is responsible for everybody on board. And that is called the safety of life at sea, which is SOLAS regulations. At the bottom of the screen, you can see safety of life at sea, SOLAS. Rule number 1 for captains is to take early and effective action. All right, now, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to tell you. Here's what it means. It means that, first of all, you need to anticipate things that are going to happen before they happen, or at least, as they're happening. You need to notice them. You don't hear about it in the paper tomorrow. You need to see it. So you anticipate by you read magazines, and in the business context, read magazines, and maybe you watch, some TV show. You ask questions. You actually listen to when people tell you things, because that's how you learn. If you don't listen, you're not learning, right? You're dumb. Okay. You survey the scene in various ways. You send out people to take surveys. So you anticipate. When I'm on the boat, I'm at the bridge, I'm looking around in my Steiner Commander binoculars, right? So I'm looking all the time for the other boats. Next thing you do is you're supposed to detect trends. And that detect means the trends. What I mean by that is things happen, but that's just things. What actually matters is how it all fits together. Like, what's the story of the things? Okay, what does it convey to you? So, for example, I see a boat on the horizon. I'm looking to see, okay, do I see the bow of the boat like pointing toward me? That's like not so bad, because that means I'm going to keep moving. He's going to keep moving. He'll come behind me. Okay. Do I see what's called his port side, which would be his left side, as when he's on the boat? That means he's going to go to the left of me. He's also going to be safe. Do I see his starboard side, which is his right side as he's driving? Well, that could be dangerous. It means our paths are going to cross. So what I do, early and effective action, the early part is that you say, well, we're still far away, but I'm going to turn now, and I'm going to turn so not just enough to miss him, but a lot. So when he looks at me, he can see the side of my boat and know that things are okay. So that's it. I'm communicating to him. I've taken action. It's under control. Nothing to worry about. And that's the sea captain job. Okay, it's a very cautious thing, and the same thing applies to airline pilots and all kinds of your doctors and things like that. You got to figure out what's going on. You got to do something right away, and you got to kind of let people know what's going on. The next thing, when I says find 2 good moves, what I mean by that is I'm a chess player, and so if you look at the picture there, those girls are playing chess. This is 1929. Stock markets are crashing. People are going hungry. These guys are sitting in their living room playing chess. That sounds nice. And when you teach people how to play chess, once they master the moves, they're working on strategy. They say, "What do we do?" And you say, "Well, look for a good move." And they say, "I think this is a good move." In terms of pawn structure and king safety and pieces supporting pieces, all the things, doubled rooks, things people play chess like to do. You look for a good move, and then when you find it, you look for a better move, so that you try to get and when you find that, you try to find a better move, and then you finally run out of time or you're bored, whatever, you move. But you also have the list of moves you thought of were good. They're almost as good, but they're not quite as good. You have this sort of set of good moves, and then the chosen move. Make a decision is picking one of those. This is a management thing I point out to you, since I'm talking to you. And I never like making decisions when people come to me and say, "We got to do something. We only got one choice." That means I'm not running the company. It means they're running the company, right? Usually people scam you that way. They say, "Oh, you only got one choice. Car's got to be blue." Well, the car comes in 50 colors. They like blue. That doesn't mean anything about the only one choice. So it's good to find a couple of good moves, because then you make a decision. You're choosing between good things. And then the thing about leadership is you can't tell if you're making a good decision when you make it. That's a dream. You hope it is. You pray it is, but you don't know. So what you have to do is, your job is make good decisions, right? So you got to look at the decision that you made in the past and do all these things, the anticipation, detection, everything. and see if they're turned out as good decisions. Because if they're not, you got to change them, or you got to do something to kind of fix it. It's a good decision to do that thing, but you got to do some feature to add to it to make it work. It made sense at the time, but now the world's changed because of distancing, social distancing. So now you got to change that. You got to be willing to change what you do to make the decisions you already made right. And that's leadership. So anyway, these are things. Each step of this it makes it seem obvious, but these are steps that are enabled or at least supported and extended by management information systems. That like you know enough to survey what the grocery store is doing at Safeway at Safeway headquarters. Are people buying oranges? Are they buying peaches? Should we get more peaches? That kind of thing, right? You need to understand what's going on so you can make good decisions. And then you got to say, well, we got the peaches, but are they still buying peaches? Or maybe we should back off on the peaches, right? So that's the make it right part. Okay, that's number one. Okay. Number two. And this is just again personal, but here's the deal. There's lots of ways to manage. People are made fun of sometimes. They're called micromanagers, because they care too much. Imagine college students when they were younger, like in elementary school, kindergarten, their parents came and tied their shoelaces for them before they went off to school. But I imagine, and now they're in college, they don't get their shoelaces tied by their parents. And if they have a girlfriend or boyfriend, probably not by them either. Like it's time to tie your own shoes, right? So what happens is there's a certain kind of caring and management and care, that you do for new people, that as they get more competent and experienced, you do less of it. And one of the things that happens to the big company is, as the boss, you got to decide which things are your problem, which things are other people's problem. And one way to do that is to manage by exception. That's the second time I said that, so I write that down. So manage by exception is the idea of this, and this is facilitated by any kind of information system supporting a business operations, is that the way the system's set up, it pretty much defines what's considered reasonable and customary inside the company. If a person's not hired after 3 interviews, they're rejected because that 3 is the number, or 30, or whatever the number is for your company. If an X isn't done after Y units of something, then Z is the rule. And so this kind of rule thing, and that's built into the MIS, because you'd say this person's done 17 interviews and we still haven't rejected them, and we haven't hired them. Something's going crazy. And it turns out that it's some like pop star coming to work for your company. Everybody wants to meet them, or some stupid thing like that. So like an MIS can actually make business operations standardized across the company. And what that means is you can empower deciders at every level of the company to make decisions. So like, as long as it's in the green, things are good. As long as it's in the yellow, they can tolerate it. As long as it's in the yellowy red, they can make a decision about what to do to fix it. And if it's in the crazy blinking siren going off red, they should ask their boss. And what that does is empowers deciders, but also it lets exceptions flow up the hierarchy. So, maybe you can't figure out what to do, but your boss can figure out to do. Maybe one of you is a terrible problem student and Nitin's given up. I don't know what to do. Well, he talks to the dean, right?
I don't give up on my students.
Well, you know what I'm saying, right? Like everybody has a boss, and maybe the boss knows what to do, and then the dean doesn't know. He asks the chancellor, and at some point, you ask the king or something. The thing is, rarely should the top people make decisions about things that are the normal course of business, but somebody has to, and that's the executive. So. An example of that would be like courts. This is federal courts in the United States. So, if you sue somebody in a federal court, there are 94 courts, and it's only 50 states, right? So there's multiple parts of states, 94 courts. So you go I'll see you in court. Well, there's 94 places to see them. There are what called 13 circuit courts. That's if you have the trial and you say, you know what? Usually people lost. I lost, and not only am I mad about that, but I think I saw the other guy slip a $50 bill to the judge. I'm going to appeal this. So that doesn't happen very often. Okay, that's an exception, right? When that happens, it could be anything. It could be the judge is weird. It's the judge's brother on trial. It could be, the police are weird. It could be the lawyers are weird. It could be one of the jurors is, whatever it is. You have an argument about why you want to appeal your case. You go to the circuit courts and you say, well, those guys decided, but they didn't know what they were talking about. I need you to look over for me. If the circuit court says, this is too much of an exception, I can't figure this out, they send you to the Supreme Court. Okay. So here in the US, we have 350 million people, and they have all the lawsuits they want. It only takes 9 people in the Supreme Court to figure out the real exceptions. Okay. So that I like that. I think it's fantastic. You might like or not like their decisions sometimes. That's a separate matter. But you don't have like 100,000 people trying to figure out what's going on. You have these layers of judges and selected for their skills and stuff. And then at the top, you got these people that say, that's a research question. I got to figure that out. I don't know. I don't know what people mean by that. What do we do about, an alien lands from Mars and you have a baby together? And then there's a custody about, like interplanetary custody. I don't know. That's not in the Constitution. We got to figure that out. That's not a local problem. That's like the top problem. Okay. That's like a Supreme Court problem, right? And so that's like a CEO problem, a C-level, C-suite problem. The weird things like that in HR handled by the chief HR person, and the weird things like that in finance handled by the CFO. And that's their problem. And if they can't figure it out, you're really in trouble. And the CEO says, "Gosh, nobody can figure this out. This is like a scary problem." That's the CEO problem. Okay, and MIS helps you do that. It makes that really logical, because even though you want to, you might, I think you should, but you might want to delegate throughout the company at the lowest level. People are going to make good decisions. This MIS kind of system lets you make that lower level and make the decisions better because there's more framework. Okay, that's a real power of information systems, is to sort of have everybody in the whole company on the same playbook. That's super important. There's a book, and it's my favorite management book. It's called Managing Management Time. It's not a new book. It's an old book. You can read it. I found it very valuable. I coach CEOs, as part of my job. I always make them read this book. So, something you think about. Point number 3. Turns out the Russian proverb that says, measure 7 times, cut once. And down at the bottom there, it's in Russian. Actually, it's in Cyrillic. What it is, it says, measure 7 times, measure 1 time, cut. If there's anybody in the audience there who speaks Russian, you probably know that from your grandmother. The English version of that is measure twice, cut once. And that tells you that Russians are more cautious, than the English-speaking people. And that there's a notion about that in MIS as well that I want to bring up, which is information and organized information is your armor against mistake. Okay, it's your armor against confusion. It's your armor against misinformation. Like right now, it's this big thing. People are all up in arms about, can I trust the newspaper? Can I trust the website? Can I trust Bob, the radio, whatever. People all up in arms about that. Well, to me, that's like a stupid question. Like, you listen to one person and you wonder whether it's the truth or not? Why don't you listen to lots of people and see where they agree and disagree? So like if you go on Google News, there's a story, there's a little button you can click at the bottom with the dots on it. You can get all the stories about that story. And so you don't have to read the story, just look at the headlines and see what they all say. And the headlines are interesting because if they're all the same statement, then it's just a fact and nobody argues it. If half of them say, Bob did this and he's a fool, and half of them say Bob did this and he's a god, you say, oh, this is like a subject whose meaning takes a lot of research to understand. And none of these stories are probably going to tell me the whole story. So having a lot of data and comparing is super valuable, right? So data is armor against those errors. I don't know if you've ever know the expression, the fog of war. I have another job I do, which is I'm an advisor to a man called the Chief of Naval Operations, the CNO. He's on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's the guy that represents the Navy. He's the highest ranking Navy officer. And I give him advice, like I'm talking to you, give him advice. And the thing about the fog of war is that admirals and generals and stuff, they're so good that they don't, that they're invincible effectively, okay? You would never want to go up against them. However, they lose sometimes because, despite being invincible, because they fight the wrong fight. That is, they're told, the enemy's in San Francisco. Enemy's actually in Monterey. So they go to San Francisco, but there's no enemy. They were perfect if the enemy were actually in San Francisco, but they went to the wrong place. Why is that? Because somebody gave the wrong coordinates. Somebody translated some secret message wrong, or whatever it is. So the general notion of if you only knew what was going on, you could win, but you can't tell what's going on, is called the fog of war. And in the military, that's considered really a scary thing. So that's why they're always asking for information from everybody all the time, because they want to correlate and conflate their data sources to understand like what's the real truth from all these pieces of semi-truth. Super important in the war. People die if they make the wrong mistake, right? Okay. The end result of that mindset is it comes down to two kinds of companies in the business case. One is called analytical decision making. And you see those big companies tend to be that way. And then you have the cult of personality kind of companies. And, if you had a small business and let's say your dad, was the barber, and then you go to work at the barber shop and you say, Dad, why do we do it this way? And he says, because I said so. He's not going to give you data from some MIS about, he's going to say, I'm the barber, you're like the kid. We do it my way. So there are companies like that, some as small as a barbershop, some as big as Apple under Steve Jobs, where there's a cult of personality, where there's somebody, and if it's a big company, probably somebody really smart and successful, but their opinions, are important. Okay. Whereas in analytical decision making, nobody's opinions are important. Actual data and analysis of data is important. So you have a debate in a company that's analytical type. You see people saying, well, I see a 7.3% return on investment if we do plan B versus only 7.1 on plan C. And in the other kind of company, you see somebody say, oh, I like San Diego better. Let's just do that one. Okay, so that's the two kinds of companies. Lots of data helps fight that. And I just have to admit, I hate that kind of style. I just hate it. I was the ambassador of Google, okay, for 6 years. I talked to heads of state all around the world. I've dined at the Buckingham Palace. I talked to Queen, Queen and Prince, all that stuff. I met all these people and, politicians and stuff. And it was interesting, but, not people I want to hang out with because they're all like, we'll do it my way. And I'm thinking, well, what do you mean your way? I mean, what about the right way? Have you thought about that? I mean, is there any engineer here? And then all this, I can't say that, of course, but I'm thinking that all the time. Okay. The next thing is there are three big ideas going on in the world right now, and you guys live through that. It's like the thing, right? It's normal to you, but it's like new to all the old people like me. I mean, it's not new, but I mean, it's fascinating how common this stuff is now. Data science, you can get a degree in that. Machine learning, it's a thing you can read about and get a degree in. Artificial intelligence is actually a thing now instead of a future thing. Okay, those three things together are all about taking data, reducing it to something between statistical analysis to a neuron simulation interpretation. But they're all about making decisions from data that are the decisions that smart people would make staring at the same data. It's fantastic. That further supports the analytical decision-making style. I love that stuff. And then I would just say one little thing. This is completely personal, so you can ignore me. And if I was a professor, maybe I couldn't say this. But this sort of data-driven business style, it also applies to your life. So and the reason for that is that most of what you think you know is wrong. And I'm not gonna, I don't even know you to know that. I just know how the world works, okay? But this fellow on the right here, who maybe you know or don't know, his name is Rene Descartes. Maybe you've heard of like Cartesian coordinates, like the X and Y on the graph. He thought of that. But he thought of something, I mean, even that's a pretty big stuff. He did a lot of great things. He did one thing that was so great that it made his name forever. And what that was he had this idea of something called the method, okay? The Cartesian method, okay? And that is to say, it's a book he wrote in French, it was translated to Latin. It's called A Discourse on the Method of Rightly Conducting One Reason, your thinking, and Seeking Truth in the Sciences. So he actually invented what you might think of as scientific method. And he applied it to his life, and he gained a huge following. And I would tell you that most of the people that have done things that you think are amazing, technical things, read his method and it affected them, and they apply that. Me too. So you might, if you got some spare time, you might see what his idea was. It was so big a deal, it's even on a stamp. Okay, a stamp. Like imagine a stamp that was a picture of like, contour integral. Fantastic. Green's theorem on a stamp. Fantastic. We don't have those kind of stamps in America. Maybe they have them somewhere, but not here. Here we have like pictures of, generals and guns and stuff. But anyway, the method, okay? Now we're going to review. Plato said you could remember 3 things, most. We're going to see what those things might be. I would summarize most of this to say that MIS, even though you have a school of MIS, even though Nathan has a PhD in MIS, really, it's not about computers and reports and charts and graphs and all that stuff. It's about efficiently organizing your company. That's what it's about. It's not about the stuff, Like, let's say you have a car. Your car isn't about the car. Your car is about driving it somewhere. That's what it's about. It's about using it, right? Okay. Number 2, that the opportunity to build tools that give you a chance to see into the future, okay, it's priceless, okay? Spreadsheets took over in accounting when they came out, not because it was easy, but because they could do what-if analysis. They could afford to say, well, if we did this, it would do that. If we did this, it would do that. They could like see into the future what would happen. So that MIS is just another more powerful corporate version of something that would be a personal tool. Management by exception keeps people honest. By default, bosses choose to do their subordinates' jobs because they used to do that before they got promoted, and it's easy for them, and they can do it perfectly. So they have an ego thing. The truth is, you want a job you can barely do. You're always afraid you're going to get laughed at or fail, fired. It's the only way you grow. Like rubber band, you stretch it as long as it'll go, and you put it back, it's not quite as small. That's your brain. So, stretch, right? Data-driven efforts as a company always be just efforts of opinion or fiat. Fiat, means because I said so. You can be the boss, CEO of any kind of company. And I shared an office with Eric Schmidt for 5 years. So, Eric and I didn't run Google. Eric ran Google, but I was in every meeting. I was in big meetings. I was in exotic places. I can tell you the number of times he said, because I said so, wasn't zero. It wasn't zero. It was like 1 maybe. It was like it really few, because if you're down to that, you've already failed. And then I mentioned that many of your facts are wrong, and I encourage you to learn. I guess it's not fair to say that without backing that up a little bit. I'll give you 2 examples. Maybe it'll make you think, and then you think about that. Maybe you'll read about the car. So I can't see if you raise your hand, but imagine raising your hand just for me here. How many of you stop at red lights when you drive? Okay.
We have a lot of people raising their hands.
They're not raising their hands. They don't stop at red lights. They just drive through. Oh my God.
They are raising their hands.
Good. Okay. So how many of you stop at the green lights? Okay. Nobody, right? Okay. Now let me ask you a question. What makes you think it's not green both ways? Like you stop at the red light because there's cars coming through, maybe, right? You stop at the green light. You don't stop at the green light. But how do you know it's not green both ways? How do you know that? Okay. And the answer is, you don't know that. You don't know how the thing's made. You don't know if it's some interlock makes it impossible. Maybe it's broken. Maybe somebody hacked the machine. Maybe your kid brother got onto it. You don't know, right? So you just figure it must be red the other way because it's green your way. See, that's a belief. It's okay to believe things, but you don't know that. You would have said you knew that, but you don't know that. That's an example. Here's another one. There's a picture here of the Milky Way. And, I like astrophotography. And I used to try to take pictures when I was a little boy with my camera. I still have a camera and I still take pictures, but I used to take these night pictures. They didn't work out too well because if I took a short exposure, I couldn't see the stars. If I took a long exposure, the stars were always streaks. Okay, and if you think about it, you know this, right? You look outside at night, the moon's over on the left, and later on it's on the right. You look at the stars, like you see, oh, there's Orion and there's the whatever, and then later on it's over to the side. Okay, so we all know that the stars parade across the heavens at night. It's something everybody knows. Okay. I think I'm not gonna ask you to raise your hand, but I think we all know that. So let's look at this picture here for a minute, and I'll suggest another way of looking at that. There's cars driving on the highway, airplanes flying by. Now I want to stop it before you fall out of your seats there at home. The way it really works is the universe doesn't spin around the Earth, right? I mean, that's stupid. Okay. Universe isn't going anywhere. It's just sitting there. Earth's spinning around. Half the time we're right side up, so to speak. Half the time we're on the bottom, clinging on. Okay. With magnetic attraction of gravity to the center of the Earth. When you're driving, sometimes you're driving, straight down. Sometimes you're driving, like upside down around the bottom of the Earth. Okay, and if you don't want to think about it, I mean, whenever you're on top, obviously people in Antarctica or, Cape Town, South Africa, are on the bottom. I mean, it's a ball. So, when you're driving, think about the fact that you're upside down. You could fly off any instant. You know what I mean? Like, it's more comfortable to pretend that we're always up and that some other something is spinning around us for our amusement. But the truth is, it's not that way. And everybody in your house or your street might tell you, no, that stars are moving. Yeah, that's right. But they aren't the ones that start companies that make billions of dollars. Okay, I have 1 billion users every month that use Google Earth and Google Maps. 1 billion different people. We serve them well, and we're proud of that. We didn't build that stuff by pretending that the Earth was flat or that the Earth's not spinning and the universe is spinning around us, whatever. We looked all kinds of information to understand how things really are. And that's how you make things that really last and are really important. All right, now, thank you for paying attention. You can send me mail. I'm pretty easy to email. My name is Michael Jones, and my email is michaeljones@gmail.com, with or without the dot. I would welcome any questions or comments all the rest of the time. I'm free to take questions and comments. I don't know if you're up on your Greek mythology. There's a picture of Cassandra here. I'm a little bit like Cassandra, not in a cross-dressing kind of way, but Cassandra had the best curse ever. She wanted to know the future. So the gods gave her the ability to know the future and to tell people about it, but she made it so nobody would believe her. Okay, so that was fantastic. So she knew the future and she could tell people, don't go over there, the bear's gonna eat you. And they go over there and the bear eats them. And they say, I never believed Cassandra, and now I'm being eaten by a bear. So that's I feel like that sometimes when people ask me questions, say, oh yeah, you should do X, and they do Y, and then they say, oh, it didn't work. X would have worked. And I say, yes, that's what I told. So anyway, I'm ready. If you got questions, fire away.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I have a few questions these guys have been sending me on the chat.
Okay, great.
So
let me stop sharing my screen. You don't need that anymore, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we're back to normal.
So the first question is from Gia. The question is, the cost to implement the infrastructure for big data. You showed that photo of Google data center. Is very high. So the question is the development in this field exclusive to players backed by huge capital? I mean, what are the barriers to entry?
Okay, well, there really isn't a barrier to entry in the sense of, it's kind of scales with the company. If you want to provide a service that takes a couple hundred petabytes to a billion people, you need a big servers, right? But I mean, if you have a barbershop and you want to keep track of your receipts, I mean, you need a piece of scratch paper, or a copy of numbers on your Apple. I mean, it's like the cost scales with the scale of the business, and presumably a big business has got money to pay for that, right? The real cost in those systems is Well, there's two kinds. I mean, if you go to Oracle and you buy stuff, it's expensive. Okay, so there's a real cost. But the real cost is people, training people to use it, people to administer it. Okay, I mean, the jobs you guys want to get, maybe MIS administrator, whatever it is, that's the cost. It's the people cost. The reward is the acceleration and streamlining of your company, the speed at which it responds to challenges and takes advantage of opportunities. So unfortunately, the reward comes later and the money comes now. So you got to believe in the reward to spend the money now. So it's kind of like a startup in a company. You know, give me $5 million, we'll do this thing, and 2 years from now you're going to be rich. But you got to wait 2 years. And so that's the only, you know, cost barrier maybe, but you can always start small. So you don't have to get like $1 billion of data to do one thing. Like in the case of Keyhole, which is Google Earth, you know, we started that in my house and I had patent on the method, and we got some friends to loan us data for a strip of data that went basically lined up with the runway at NASA and went into Sunnyvale a little bit. And they loaned us the data. They didn't like ask their boss about it. And we used that to show VCs. And then we got money, and then we got some data. We gave their data back, right? So, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, not that that's the same as MIS, but, you know, like you can do things cheaply and say, this is gonna be great. And then you can do them expensively and it's gonna be great. You already know it. So it doesn't, that's my answer anyway, is that it pays for itself. So it's a good investment.
That makes sense. Question from Nihi. Have you ever regretted being a leader due to the huge burden of making the decisions that can affect lives of so many people? What would you do if your decisions turned out to be ineffective? And I think this comes from something that we talk about, that, you know, that information systems have the capability of affecting the lives of millions of people together. And the problem is never making the choices between right or wrong. It is always making the choices between wrong and wrong, or right and right. And those are the difficult ones.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So yes, how I felt about it, right? So that's easy to answer. No, I never didn't want to be a decider because I made a bad decision. I wanted to be a decider who made better decisions. Okay, like, did you ever like do something wrong with your baby and you say, "Oh, I can't believe I did that. I'm gonna get the baby back to the hospital." No, people don't do that. They stick with being a parent. They just try to be a better parent, right? So I don't think I felt that. The sense of, do I feel overriding burden, and do the idea of like, if this company doesn't make it, they're all going to lose their jobs. They're going to maybe lose their house. The family's going to split up. Who knows what? Yeah, I feel that every single day. I feel it every single minute. When I'm out there looking with binoculars, I'm thinking if I hit a rock, you know, or a boat, everybody's going to drown. I mean, here we're from, you know, 1,000 nautical miles from Fiji. I mean, what are they going to do? You know, so yeah, I think about that all the time. It makes me somber and serious when I'm a fun guy, but I mean, when I'm boat captain, I'm like, really, I'm like another person. I'm like so focused on like perfection, you know. But you know, I mean, Eric's that way, and you know, Larry and Sergey, half playful, half super serious. Because I mean, like the responsibility makes you serious. You never see doctors guessing, should I give her this pill or that pill? You know, it's just not possible when you're the one having to make that decision, right? It's a serious thing. So no, it's a fine career. It's not scary. Okay, that's me. But I want to answer another question, which you didn't ask, okay, if I may. In general, how does one deal with the stress of leadership or the knowledge that their decisions can affect others? Okay, and here's a thought for you. Right now, it's super popular to talk about STEM education in America. They like that because they see programmers driving Ferraris. They figure that must be what everybody should do. Well, obviously, everybody did that. It wouldn't work that way. They'd all be paid minimum wage because there'd be too many of them. But that aside, here's the thing. In STEM education, they teach you how to like make a gun, okay? In classes on morality and ethics and history, they teach you whether or not to shoot people, okay? Those are two separate lines of thought, okay? If all you know how to do is make guns, you're like dangerous, okay? So my advice to you as you're learning how to run companies is you learn something about philosophy and history, because that's what's gonna help you make decisions that really are truly wise, and that also keep your soul at peace those times when things don't go right. Okay, that's my moralize. You can ignore that if you want, but that's my, I love STEM education, but, and you don't know what to do with it, that's crazy, okay?
That's good advice. What sources do you use to stay current with news and trends in both management and technology? How is this information then used to relay to others in your company team to help keep everybody competitive and informed?
Okay, well, I guess the best context to talk about that would be, let's just say at Niantic. Okay, so here we have Niantic, hiring people all the time, growing, buying game teams and trying to figure out what to do. Okay, so we say, oh, we got some new people here. The guy that ran that company or the woman that ran that company, they should be a new VP of games or whatever. And so we get new ideas from new people, right? So new people bring new ideas. So it's like bees pollinate the plants, So that's the number one. I read things like the Harvard Review and things like that, but the truth is those aren't. I mean, nothing against them, but they tend to just be a wordy way of saying things everybody already knows. What's interesting is somebody says, "Oh, I was at Twitter and we did this thing. It seems stupid, but it worked out great." You say, "Oh, really? I never thought about that. That seems crazy, but maybe we'll try that too." It's like that works a lot better. Okay, just talking to people and listening. New people. Next thing is diverse teams. It's trendy to focus on to hire women and underrepresented minorities in management positions because it's not equal distributed. But it's more than just morally or ethically right. It's also make you rich, because basically when you have a more diverse team, they're more successful. We saw that at Google. Every team was like that. The most successful teams had the most diverse people. It's kind of like the super friends. One of them is blind but super smart, and one of them can sing. It's kind of like that makes the best teams in the world, and you'll learn the most from teams like that.
Awesome. Given your distinguished background and major accomplishments, what advice can you give to someone who's just starting their careers in technology and business?
Well, let's see. I guess you're gonna want to get a job. I mean, some people are independently wealthy, but the rest of us have to work, right? So one thing is getting hired, and one of them is doing well, right? And the way you get hired is like if you had all D's, probably that wouldn't help, right? If you think about that, it means everybody's better than you. Why would somebody hire you? Okay, so let's say you get all A's. Are they going to hire you? Well, maybe not, because maybe there's 5 people with all A's that apply for the job, and they all have A's. Which one should you hire? Should you go alphabetically? Choose some kind of profiling. But here's the thing: among the qualified people, which doesn't mean all A's, but I mean that seem competent and skilled, your attitude is like 80% of why you get hired once you're in the club of people who might get hired. Okay, if you're like a jerk, or they're not going to hire you because they don't like you. If you're like a dunce, they're not going to hire you either. But if you're like a viable candidate, then they're going to look at you, look at your attitude. Okay, your attitude is one of I'm excited about myself. I'm not serious exactly, but I'm focused on what I want to do. I work hard. Like not like, boss, I'll work real hard. Not like that kind of hard, but I mean like, you have a hobby and you do your hobby real hard. You have a sport you're in and you do it real hard. It might feel really good, but it means you play really hard. It's like the movie Rudy. If you saw the movie Rudy, I would hire Rudy in a heartbeat because his heart was good. Okay, so that's the kind of thing. So there's that. Now, once you get in the company or a company and you want to have a path to the stars, okay, I could tell you a couple things. One, there is no path to the stars. There's some reasonable path. There's a stumbling around in the dark doing your best and it works out okay. That's like that. Okay. I mean, and I'm not making fun of the question. I'm just kind of be honest with you. It's like, Mom, what should I do so that the first person I date will be my lifelong mate? Well, that's not how it works. You date people so you can reject the ones that aren't your lifelong mate. It's not like you could just know. I mean, how are you gonna know, right? Until you have a date. You can't just know, right? So you're gonna do jobs. You say, why am I here? What am I doing here? You have a boss. You say, oh my God, where did this guy come? Things are gonna happen like that. And so you look back on your life. You say, wow, it's like a bunch of twisty turns. So it's not like there's some path. Now, if I'm revealing a secret that the university has kept hidden, I'm sorry, but I don't believe it's like that. But I will tell you this: there are some secret things you can do to be the shining star at the company and have it always accelerate you forward. I'll tell you one of them that I have a friend that did, who was super successful, and he essentially built the Nintendo Wii, and I led that project. And he retired after that, and he's youngish guy, but he lives in Los Altos, and we're buddies. And I said, you know what? You've always done really well. What was your secret? And he said, oh, my dad told me what to do. And I said, well, what did he tell you? You know? He said, he told me to bring an extra suit coat to work, hanging on the back of my door. We all had offices back in the day. We wore suits to work. We looked grown-ups, okay? Bring a suit coat and work around the clock 1 day a week. So he would go on Wednesday morning, and he would bring like a couple of extra bags of lunches. And then he would, like, everyone else went home, he would like close his door, and he would work Wednesday night to midnight, 6 a.m. He'd change into the other suit and be there all day Thursday, and then he'd go home. He got an extra day's work in compared to all his peers at General Electric. And his dad became some super boss at GE, working like an extra day, you know? And this boy, he did great at the companies where I worked with him. And he had this secret thing where he would just sneak in and work all the time. Okay, this is before work from home. Okay, but I mean, imagine if all your competitors do 5 units of work and you do 6 units of work. You're going to be the superstar. That's how. I mean, so I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that's what he did. Okay, what I did was very different. I'm not that disciplined. I want to sleep. So what I did was I said, I will figure out the hardest problem in the company and I will solve it. And I'll walk in and say, I have solved the hardest problem. This is the equation. This is the method. This is the thing that nobody could solve. I just solved it here. And they say, oh my God, this is amazing. What can we do? I said, it's yours. And they said, well, will you be the director of R&D? Will you be the, it always works. They don't want to lose you after that. So I chose to just do some magic, to seem smart, be smart and use that to solve problems that were meaningful to the company. This guy did some muscle. He chose to work more hours. All right. And I'm not saying that either one of those is what you should do, but those are examples of, if you're great on a curve, but the students could do like extra tests if they wanted to, even think about it, your cumulative score could be enormous, and the denominator would wash out your bad. It'd be fantastic. I took 2 sessions every class at once and averaged the score. You just imagine that, so outdo everybody. You are graded on a curve in life. Okay, that's an answer.
Thank you so much. You kind of like answered the next 2 questions. By the way, there's a comment. You're so rock, man. Pardon my informality, sir. Couldn't help it.
I'm not really a sir, but thank you. I'm just a guy, and I'm passionate, and I like people, and I like ideas. I love ideas. I mean, ideas are like babies to me. I mean, I really love ideas. I fight to the death for ideas. It's not be my idea. If it's a good idea, man, I'll defend against anything. And
so I have a couple of more questions.
Great.
So you became a partner in Seraphim Capital, the world's first space-focused venture fund.
Yeah.
So knowing you would only get into something which will hold an enormous future, right? And which will make a difference in the lives of billions of people. So what's going on?
Why space? Well, space is 2 reasons. 2 reasons actually. First is actually really a simple reason. It's not so lofty as you imagine. I made my name and my, fortune, so to speak, in Google Earth. Google Earth takes data from space, from satellites, doesn't work with satellites, but it buys the data from satellites, mosaics it together, and delivers valuable products to humans on the ground. Google Maps, same thing. So I thought, well, I wonder what the next Google Earth is. And who's the next Michael and Brian and John and all my buddies. And I want to help them have money. So I became a VC so I could get hundreds of millions of dollars of other people's money to give to people that look to me like, baby versions of me, so they could build similar kinds of products. So that was my secret, real reason. Okay. But the other reason is that there's very few businesses, like space-related businesses, that are as global. And something I learned at Google was that, if you have like Coca-Cola, everybody drinks Coca-Cola around the world. Not like everybody drinks it, but people in Russia like it. Some people in Indonesia like it. Some people, everybody, Saudi Arabia, everybody has a chance to enjoy Coca-Cola. So when you're in Atlanta working at Coca-Cola, you're actually around the world putting bubbles into drinks, right? So I learned at Google that's really valuable and important to serve everybody. So space businesses are inherently global. There's something in space. It's going around. The Earth's going around. And effectively, you paint the whole Earth with your whatever it is, your big ear, your eyes, whatever you're doing. So I like that it serves all humans, or at least all businesses that serve other humans. I like the everywhereness of space. That pleases me. That's the reason.
Awesome. One question is, how do you feel about the area of cybersecurity? Do you invest or work in that area, especially now that the virtual market is exploding and cybersecurity will become a big issue?
Yeah, cybersecurity is huge. I'll do a kind of full disclosure, which is that I do probably $50,000 to $100,000 a year at home in patent work. I mean, I don't do. I mean, I pay. And my work for the last 4 years has all been about my personal invention, all been in cybersecurity. Oh, no. So I just actually one of my patent things is just did all the international filings, like a patent treaty PTO thing. So like Japan and France and Greece, and so and I think that's it's worth probably $100 million per licensee, and there's maybe a dozen licensees, so it could be good, but so I believe it's super important, and I think it's something Bill Gates actually had a real good sense about, that it had Microsoft and Gates had a grotesque failure at implementing, but still he had the right sense, which is the most important thing, is just figuring out where the problem is. He said, look, how are people going to trust us if the computer's not, and how are they going to do things with the computer they trust if the computer itself isn't trustworthy? So he had this trustworthy computing initiative, came up with Windows Vista, remember that? And it turned out to be awful because people didn't like it. That is, they weren't having their money stolen right now, so they don't want to be inconvenienced right now, But that was like a psychological problem. They didn't think about that because they're all engineers. But the idea of trustworthy computing has really been on my mind a lot. And so what I've worked on at home has been most of security approaches in the whole world, all of them really, except, well, maybe the cone of silence and Get Smart, but most of the security ideas in the world are all about trying to fix an unsecure system by doing stuff to fix a leak. So like if you hired a plumber and he came to your house and he crawled under the sink and he said, oh, it's leaking. And you said, I knew it was leaking. He said, let me get duct tape and I'll wrap it with more tape. You think, well, what kind of plumber is this? You're not fixing the leak. You're like putting more tape. It's already like this big around because the tape's on there. So most of the security things are like that. They're all about patching leaks. And that's not the way it's going to be in Star Trek, right? It's not going to be like Scotty putting duct tape on things. It's just gross. So I thought, if there was like an atomic chart, like if there was a set of molecules or some fundamental like Lego blocks of totally secure parts, and when you put them together, they made totally secure systems. What parts could be completely safe, just like by design? Would that be a special kind of transistor? Would that be a special kind of computer motherboard? Would that be a special kind of building? I don't know. What would be a molecule of a completely secure something? And could you make enough different molecules that you could put them together in some way to make a completely secure something interesting? If the molecules are too small to be interesting on their own. So I spent a couple of years on that. I got patents, and I believe there are things you can do. Awesome. So yeah, I believe it's a good space, and I highly recommend that space they're hiring. It's important. There's an obvious business risk. I'll tell you this: half of the companies that suffer hacking or some kind of service attacks or whatever are out of business in 6 months. Half.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I want to be mindful of your time. You have a few more moments.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good, man. I'm imprisoned in my house. I'm not going somewhere. People aren't coming over anytime soon. I mean, I'm here. So go ahead.
You mentioned in one of your slides, let me see, data-driven efforts versus fiat, right?
Yeah.
From the current COVID situation, what I've noticed is that fiat always overrules data-driven approaches. And for some reason, and I mean, I'm not just talking about the US, I'm talking about world over, right?
Yeah.
We saw, initial approach was data driven. The healthcare consulting was done, and they were part of the presentations, and a lot of decisions were made based on what they were saying. But there was a lot of chaos also. But fiat kind of like changed all that, but it also brought a lot of order. I don't know rightly or wrongly, but it brought a lot of order to the world in terms of reducing fear or anxiety. And so, I mean, it is contradictory to what you were saying that, and it makes sense that data-driven approach should always overrule fiat, whereas in reality, we are seeing fiat being overruled by data-driven approach every time. And kind of like makes sense, or maybe doesn't make sense. What are your thoughts?
Well, I doubt there's specifically people are complicated, and big giant batches of people are very complicated. So I doubt there's a rule or a story about people that doesn't have a counterexample, just because people are different, So that's okay. It's fine if I'm right some and wrong some. What I meant wasn't that data driven, that if you say my decision's data driven, so you should accept it, Mr. King. I'm not saying that King says, oh, I have to do what you say then. That's not what I meant at all. I mean, emperors, have a kind of character that's like not like that, okay? So on the other hand, I've had a chance to meet a lot of world leaders. And as a data point, Angela Merkel is like an engineer. President Kalam, former president of India, is a rocket scientist, okay, from ISRO in Dehradun. He says, what's a thrust? What's this? What's that? He's like a scientist, he's like older guy, he's president. He's like a scientist. Okay, it's fantastic. I felt like I met my brother, So it was great, right? So there are some people, like in China, PRC, all the government people, they're all scientists. They all train as engineers. I mean, they're all party, but I mean, they're all engineering training. So if they have an opinion, they figured it out. It'll work. I mean, it may not be humane. Right now, they're doing DNA sequencing of all the people so they can do ethnic tracking, right? So that might be considered tacky by some, but they'll do it well. You know what I mean? It's kind of like they have good STEM skills, but different other skills maybe. So it's like what I will tell you is that we've watched in the COVID crisis humanity under attack by, it's as if aliens landed from some outer space and were laser beaming people to death. Okay, that's what it's like. Okay, and it's in fact it is natural. It's novel. It's as though it came from Mars. Okay, every country, the 211 countries, whatever, every country has a book from the World Health Organization. Every country has a bookshelf from the United Nations. And they have their own books from their own health people to know exactly what to do right now. Every single country. They have people in charge of that in CDC. They know exactly what to do. Almost no countries did that. New Zealand did, South Korea did, China did their version of that. I mean, there are a dozen countries out of 200 that played by the rules, their own rules. The other countries said, what people always do in a crisis, they say, well, yeah, but this is different, or this is, I want to try this thing, or maybe, yeah, that would be a good idea, you pedantic academician, but here I'm a realist and I need to worry about so-and-so. I mean, of course there are emotional reasons not to do the book, but the book says, if you don't do this book by Thursday, 11 more people are going to die, or 11,000, 11 million, or whatever. Okay, so and that's what happens, okay? So it's not like there's some surprise there. Those countries that didn't follow the rules, they chose to let more people die. They might have denied it, but that's what they chose. And maybe that's what the public wanted. Maybe that's what the king wanted, whatever it is, but that's a choice. So I still like the fact that knowledge and logic and information lets you make a wise decision. Maybe you don't make a wise decision, or maybe it is wise, because maybe if you, I'm not being political, I'm saying, maybe an extra 100,000 people dead is nothing compared to the 10 million that were going to die from the, whatever disease is going to happen if all the power plants shut down and all the wastewater messes up the. I don't know, right? That's a boss decision. I got all these things going on and they all affect each other. It's a differential equation, and somebody's got to decide that. The more you decide on data, the more likely you are to get it right. But That's why you have elections. That's why you have a king. You know, it's okay to go against the rules. You know, I speed on the highway if like I was being chased by like Martians, you know, or if I was trying to get to the hospital before my wife died, or, you know, I mean, I would speed, you know.
Yeah.
But so, you know, I know what the law is, but I might break it because I felt like I had a good reason, you know. I mean, that's part of being a human, you know? Kings are like that.
So do you think the current crisis, you know, the data-driven approach, even, you know, making more data public? I think there was a spat going over in Florida where they were talking about, you know,
Yeah.
accurately presented and somebody got their own dashboard. So do you think that we are being presented correct data and correct amount of data?
Oh, you know, no, I don't know about that. I mean, what I mean is I don't know the totality of data. I don't know people's appetite for it. You know, I mean, like, I don't know, you know, I mean, I just don't know. I'll tell you this, like the woman that was in charge of the data scientist who did the mapping for Florida. The real thing, I mean, I have a friend, a personal friend, Jim Fallows, who writes for Atlantic Magazine, and we talk about lots of stuff, and I get lots of backstory stuff. And the real thing was, she put on her chart which counties had met the Florida guidelines for opening up. And out of 100 counties, like 3 had. But the governor already committed to open up like 50 counties. He promised the president. He'd gone on TV. And the governor said, you know, they're all going to get sick and die. You don't know they're going to get sick and die. You don't really know as a fact. So don't do that. And she said, no, I'm a data scientist. I must do that. And so she's an unemployed data scientist, right? So there was already a political decision. She chose to go against it. And so the power structure got rid of her as an enemy agent. I mean, that's what happened. Okay. It doesn't, but she didn't do what her boss told her. Okay. Whenever you work for somebody, you take their money, take the king's shilling, as they said in England. I mean, you work for them. So if I were her, I would have quit and gone somewhere where they wanted to know the truth, right? Her saying, you must hear the truth won't make shady people change. It won't. I'll tell you that just as a, like, your mom and dad can tell you this, I can tell you this, okay? You can't like shame bullies into stopping being bullies, okay? That doesn't work on bullies, okay? That's why they're bullies, right? So they have such a shame-proof shield that you can't see. Don't try to do that. I mean, I'm not saying give up on your values, but your values are not a shield against infidels because they don't share your values. So, you know, you can play along with their values at work. That's your job. Or you can go somewhere else where they value your values. Those are both choices. The stay here and make them all bend to my powerful will. I mean, I've never seen it work. Nitin, have you seen that work?
No.
No. Okay, sorry. The 2 oldest people are in the room tell you it doesn't work. You'll be a martyr and we'll all love you for it, but you'll still lose your job and go down in flames. It just doesn't work. Go somewhere else. Do something different. Your life's short. Don't waste it on losers. Just use that kind of like you're dating, and you're dating with somebody who turns out to be weird. Just let that be the last date. Don't have more dates to see how weird they are. Just say no. You know, I have a relative. I don't want to say what I have a relative who's been married several times. I met his latest wife, and she said, you know, he doesn't understand. And I said, what doesn't he understand? She said, well, you know, sometimes I get up at night and I just can't sleep. I said, yeah, I mean, I understand that. She said, you know, I like to vacuum. And she said, when I come in the bedroom and he's sleeping, it's 3 a.m. and I'm vacuuming, he just doesn't understand. I'm thinking, oh my God, what kind of person do you live with who thinks coming in the middle of the night with a vacuum cleaner and waking you up is reasonable? You know, like that's her insomnia technique, is to wake up people with a vacuum cleaner. That's like, I'd be out of there. I mean, I would just be like, we're done. You know, I mean, like, not about the vacuum cleaner, not waking up. It's just like, you're so asocial that I'm terrified. I'm sorry, I disappeared there. My internet went away. It's unbelievable to me. I never have any problems. But of course, today I have problems.
I think you're really resonating with the youngsters. They love your advice, especially your examples. We have one last question that was just sent.
Yep, of course, anything.
The question is, has there been any ideas, solutions to a problem that you have had that you regretted because they either didn't turn out how you wanted or just weren't the right solutions? Can you share an example of how you handled it?
Okay. Yes, of course I've had that feeling. I mean, nobody's life is all shiny, you know. I've had businesses that failed, not just business cheated me, and I just had to leave. I worked for a company for a friend actually. A friend of mine worked at a big company, Lockheed Martin. They had done this remarkable work. He spent a huge amount of money building this incredible augmented reality helmet for the F-35 fighter. It's an $800,000 helmet, but it turns out the lenses in it to have this full human vision field of view aren't very expensive to make. And my friend had invented those lenses. He got a deal with Lockheed. I'm sorry, I'm just fighting this weird internet problem. I've never had a problem before. Okay, I have a super fancy router. This is a crazy thing. Anyway, so basically, the people in Florida thought people in California weren't nice, and people in California didn't like the people in Florida, and I wasn't willing to, fire half the people I should have done, but I tried to make them be nice. It didn't work out well. Then after we raised the money, my friend wanted to run the company. So he said, well, I don't need you anymore because I'm going to run the company now. So I felt, hurt by that. And then about a year later, they went out of business. So I just felt, that's an example, didn't work. As far as my own ideas, yes, my first idea never came to pass. And I feel like a failure in life because I didn't do it. My first business idea, do I have like 2 or 3 minutes to tell the story or not?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so my wife and I were in a restaurant, okay? And she's a nice person, and she's modest. She is in North Carolina, in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we're in this restaurant, and I forgot what we were eating, but she wanted some ketchup to go on her French fries. It's a fish restaurant. She wanted ketchup to go on her French fries. So she grabbed the bottle of ketchup and she started to shake it to get the ketchup to move around. And the previous person hadn't put the lid back on snugly. So the lid flew off and the ketchup flew up in the air, came down across her face. So she was like shocked, and she went to the ladies' room to wash her face off. And so she was in there at the sink with this ketchup on her face. And a little girl, like 6 or 8, came out of the toilet stall. I guess she was young enough that going to the bathroom by herself was like a big deal. And she saw my wife in there with the big, what she thought was blood across her face. She started screaming in the bathroom. And the parents, who could imagine all these terrible things happening in the bathroom, ran to the bathroom, the husband and the wife, and the manager came out, and there was this whole like SWAT scene thing going on in the bathroom. The girl was taken out, she was sobbing, and the parents were looking back at the bathroom. So after a while, my wife came out of the bathroom. Everybody in the restaurant is staring at my wife through the whole meal. She's like so embarrassed. She was sad for the girl, she was so embarrassed, and she felt like a victim of the ketchup. And so we went home, and I thought, there's got to be a better way to get the ketchup out of the bottle. I'm going to save my wife this future embarrassment, and all the wives and all the people who hate getting ketchup out of the bottle. And so what I came up with was this injection molded Archimedes spiral, a screw that you undo the lid of the bottle, and then you stick this thing inside, it's a little screw, and there's a little fixture at the top where the ring with the screw on it goes in into another thing that goes onto the bottle. So basically, when this thing's installed, you take the lid off and you just turn the bottle and the ketchup screws out. And it's like a device for pouring viscous fluids. And it was going to cost $90,000 to build an injection mold to make my thing. and I had like $9. You know, I didn't have any money at all. I could barely pay for the patent work. And I just set that aside. I never did anything about it. And every time I see people banging on a ketchup bottle or cursing at the knife in there and all these crazy things people do, I think, who in the heck put ketchup in a bottle it wouldn't come out of? You know, it's like it's a vacuum formed by the neck that goes like that. If it was straight sided, it would be perfect, but they put it in like a torture bottle so you can't get the ketchup out. And I have the solution for that since 1981. Okay, that was like 41 years ago. And I never did anything about it because like by the time I had extra 100K, I had other things to think about. So I never did that. I feel like a ketchup loser. Yeah. So yeah, I do think of that. It bothers me a lot. You'd be amazed. It bothers me a lot. I don't care about any money from it. It's a solved problem, but only in my head. So like people with ketchup and they can't get the ketchup out, it's not solved for them. I feel like I cheated them. Yeah, that's how I feel.
That is amazing. That is an amazing example. We're still doing the ketchup the old way. We still haven't.
No, it's crazy. I mean, it's just such a stupid thing. The bottle is your enemy. It's like, you know, how can it be that way? You know, like sometimes you go to, you know, I don't know if this is the way San Jose State, but you go to a building and there's a door. You go to the door, there's a handle. You pull on the handle and it won't open. And somebody says, oh, you got to push that. You got to push a handle? I mean, who put a handle on the side where you push it instead of a plate? You know, like some psychotic architect, you know, put a handle there when it doesn't go that way. I mean, you know, you pull on handles, right? You push on, like as a, you know, just as a rational person, you know, that's like an offense to humanity. So anyway, yeah, that's the kind of stuff bothers me. Yeah. My wife was so terrified by that girl screaming in the bathroom. I thought, I gotta solve this problem. But see, I'm an engineer, so once I figured it out, I didn't care anymore. I solved it. You know, like it didn't really, you know what I mean? It's kind of like I like the puzzle part of it, but not the business part. I mean, to be honest, that's like work, but the puzzle part is like doing a Sudoku. You know, it's like fun. So I like the puzzle part of it.
All right. How do you feel about the virtual reality and augmented reality? I mean, they serve different purposes, but you know, one of them will dominate the other.
Well, I mean, virtual reality is more limited, okay?
Right.
But it's also exclusionary. Like you can't really imagine a party, everybody's wearing a VR headset and nobody can see each other and they're all doing something. It just doesn't sound like, I mean, much of a party, you know what I mean? I mean, maybe that's as good as it gets in the future. I mean, group sex, everybody stays at home, it looks at a screen, you know, I mean, I don't know, you know, but I mean, realistically, it's exclusionary. AR is different. AR has a chance to augment your life. And so that's fun, but I don't, I mean, with AR, you put a black screen in front, it's a VR, you know, so it's not like they're enemy technologies. I believe in it heavily. I've spent several $100 million in the last 3 years at Niantic, building a world-class AR team that, you know, is equivalent to Facebook and Apple and Google. So I don't, I mean, we're in that club, which is hard to do when you're like a little company. It's easier when you have a lot of revenue, but I mean, it's still is hard to do. So I believe in it deeply, and we work with companies around the world. It's super important, but it's not here yet. So it's hard to understand how important it's going to be because it's all hypothetical. You know, imagine a phone before there was a phone network. You know, so you say mobile phone's going to be great, but you know, like we got to build towers all over the world, and there aren't any towers yet. People say, well, call me back when there's towers. You know, I mean, there's a kind of a thing like that, right? So you know, there's not a device yet that's fun to wear that lasts long enough on battery power. That's not too hot to like burn your head. It doesn't make your ears sore because it's too heavy. You know, there's, from a human standpoint, the viable winning device doesn't exist. And I've seen every device on the planet. So I mean, I'm not just saying that. I mean, it doesn't exist. Okay, so researchers are working hard on it, and they will exist, and they will be fantastic. You know, I'll give you an example from Google days. I did this, you know, some patent work at Google about Google Maps navigation that nobody implemented, which, you know, made me mad. But anyway, when you get directions from Google Maps, you know, it says, you know, go left, go right. I thought, well, you know, you're walking through San Francisco, walking around holding a phone in your, you look like a it's stupid, right? You're gonna walk into something. So what I said was, let's have the phone vibrate like once for left and twice for right. You put it in your pocket. Then you just walk around. You know what to do. You don't have to like walk around staring at the phone all day. It's crazy. So that was kind of like a augmented reality of a vibrating thing in your pocket. Okay. So like, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's actually better than the screen. So like, there's a lot of chances for what augmented reality can be that haven't been manifest yet. So I mean, don't think it's people wearing big glasses is somehow and I'm not against that, but I mean, someday the right technology is going to look like my glasses or a girl's sunglasses. Like for example, there you go. The guy's all fancy here. So like here's a statement. This is a sexist statement, but I'll just say this based on my personal experience. I've seen guys willing to wear anything, but I've not met a woman who wanted to like mess up her hair wearing something that looked like Darth Vader. Okay, ever. So I think that VR and AR won't work until it's something you wear casually, like wearing sunglasses at the beach or something. Like that's the level of investment that a human should make to engage in the technology. Okay, and then so that's got to work that way, and then the service has to be exciting and valuable. But the delivery of it has got to just be comfortable and natural. It can't require a different haircut. For example, as an example, in the American fashion, I see girls and women with long fingernails. Maybe they're just long. Maybe they're like Lee press-on talons. I don't know, but they have these long, sort of Chinese martial arts kind of fingernails. Okay, and you see people like that using mobile phones, trying to tap on things, and going through hell to try to tap on that thing, right? And so you can almost imagine the battle of wills between people designing the phone, thinking, "I'll make them cut off their fingernails," and the purchaser saying, "I'll never cut off my fingernail." You can imagine this kind of thing. So what I suggested to Samsung CEO actually was, why don't you make the phone be a bracelet for girls that curves so they can tap the phone and their fingernail sticks off the other side, doesn't cause any problem. They looked at me like I was an idiot. I'm thinking, what? What's this cultural warfare thing with fingernails? Just give in, use the positive curvature, So I,
Yeah.
did I regret that phones aren't bracelets for people that have long fingernails? Yeah, I regret that because that's an obvious solution. There aren't any like that. It's stupid. They could be. Anyway, yeah. Like I said, it's like Cassandra. You can be sure you're right and still have nobody listen to you. It's just amazing. Okay.
Thank you so much. We have there are no more questions left. I've
Great.
Everybody to unmute yourself. You can, if you want to say thank you, and give him a good big round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's so sweet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You were very inspirational, and to be ourselves and to just put our best foot forward. So thank you so much.
That's all there is, man. It's all there is in life. Really. Like, just be yourself. Everyone else is taken. You know what I mean? Like, there's nobody else to be. Oscar Wilde said that. My point is, like, there's nobody. I don't know if you ever read Sherlock Holmes, but in the same kind of time frame as Sherlock Holmes, people in top hats, and stuff. Oscar Wilde is like this flamboyantly gay guy wandering around making witty comments about how stupid people are. He didn't get along well with anybody. Somebody said, "How can you be that way?" And he said, "Who else could I be? I'm me." That's all you can do. Okay, just be you, and you'll be proud of yourself, whatever happens.
Thank you, Uncle Michael.
Hey, everybody, take good care of Winston now. He and I are tight. Okay, all right. All right.
All right, you have a good day.
Bye, everybody.
Also, Uncle Michael, Chelsea says hi.